Welcome back to Kings of Columbus on the podcast. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis previewing Ohio State, Michigan. Landis in the second half, feelings, but not player and coach feelings, fan feelings. We asked the tech subscribers 2 questions. Based off what Jack Sawyer said about the last 3 Michigan losses, how much have these 3 Michigan losses, quote, ruined your life? We have some very real responses about that. And then in this week of Thanksgiving, how thankful are you to be a fan of Ohio State? What has it meant to you and your family and friends that this is part of your life? So we're going to do the mad. We got like some ruined vacations, drunk at the bar, like some not like real, like this was not good for me these last 3 years. Yep. And then we have some super heartfelt stuff that like almost makes me cry reading this stuff from people because it is what the best of sports should be. Sometimes isn't. But when it is, when it's the thing that bonds you to your family and your friends, when it is the thing that is a self-identifier for you that makes you happy about yourself, about your life, boy, oh boy, can sports be good. So we got some of that, but we got ball at the front because we got to talk ball, brother, right?
We do have to talk ball. Yeah, and we talked a little bit of ball on Kings of the North. We point people in the direction of the show that was live on Wednesday, but you can find in the Kings of the North feed. We talked a lot about this game there, and we're going to do it more here.
So we're going to draft here, which is what we've done for the last couple of big Ohio State games on Kings of Columbus. The 10 most important people for this game. And can I preface this? Well, no, I won't preface it because I'll wait till the person that is picked that I can make this point for. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I think we're going to pick the same person first, so I don't know that it matters.
Okay. I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm picking Ryan Day.
Correct.
Here's what I would like to lay down for people. This would almost be an anti-Ryan Day pick, this explanation here, but it's still Ryan Day. I don't think this is a vibes and feelings game. I think this is a football game because when it's close, when they're both good or they're both average, then I think vibes and feelings decides the game. Which coach gets their team up for it better? Which team is able to be aggressive but not tight, motivated but not nervous? All that really matters. But in the history of Ohio State, Michigan, Bill, sometimes one team's good and one team's not good. And so I just want to make sure. I think the number one analysis of this game is one team is good and one team is not. And I just want to make sure that we're providing that because I think it's not it, but it's mostly it. And my point about Ryan Day here is Ryan Day has never been able to face a Michigan team like this as the head coach because he's always, as the head coach, faced good Michigan.
2019?
Right? Top 10.
Really? I can't remember. It was too long ago. I just said they beat them by a lot.
That was a 2-10 game in 2019. So that's like, okay, they hung 56 on him, but it was 2-10. And 2018, when he was offensive coordinator, 62-39, Ohio State was ranked lower than Michigan in that game. So the last time that Michigan wasn't ranked in this game, the last time it wasn't a top 10 game was 2017 when Michigan was unranked and Ohio State was 8th. So here's a stat, and then we'll talk about Ryan Day, but I just want to drop this stat because here's the thing, and I don't want to make people nervous, but when I've pushed back against John Cooper comparisons, this is actually Ryan Day's John Cooper game. Because the thing about John Cooper was having very good Ohio State teams that lost to Michigan teams that weren't as good. John Cooper was not losing bangers. John Cooper was not losing top 10 matchups. So I just, for the record, want to state this. Here's what I want to state. Is it okay if I state some of this stuff for the record here early on in the show?
Yeah.
I'm not sure this is being stated elsewhere. For me, you draw the line at Woody. That's the modern Ohio State football. So like whatever Paul Brown and Wes Fessler and guys did is great. It's not relevant to today, but I think Woody is relevant. I think what Woody did in the 50s and 60s is relevant to today, especially in this rivalry. Since 1951, Ohio State is 40, 30, and 2 against Michigan. Okay. 40, 30, and 2. When Michigan is not a top 10 team, Ohio State is 28 and 12 against Michigan. When Michigan is a top 10 team, Ohio State is 12, 18, and 2 against Michigan. So when Michigan's good, Michigan's beating Ohio State. That includes Woody. When Michigan's not good, Ohio State wins. Woody, top 10 Michigan teams, 13 of 28 years, he faced a top 10 Michigan team. Less than half the time. He was 6-6-1 against a top 10 Michigan team. Earl Bruce, 5 out of 9 years, faced a top 10 Michigan team. He was 1-4. John Cooper faced a top 10 Michigan team 5 out of 13 years. He was 0-4-1. Jim Tressel faced a top 10 Michigan team 3 out of 10 years. He was 2-1. Urban Meyer faced a top 10 Michigan team 2 out of 7 years. He was 2-0. Ryan Day has faced a top 10 Michigan team 4 out of 4 years. He's 1-3. This is not what other guys have had to do, Bill. And so I just think as we prepare for a game where Michigan is not a top 10 team, I think that is worth reminding people of. Do you agree?
I do agree. Yeah. I mean, it's good. It's good context. Yeah, I think so. I still, Urban and Tressel had winning records in those situations, right? So it's not like it's an impossible task to still have a winning record against a good Michigan team. But I think it does. I think it helps bring a little bit of context. I don't know that it necessarily explains all of the last
doesn't excuse.
3 years.
Perhaps explains, doesn't excuse. Is how I would say it. In this era since 51, when they're both in the top 10, Ohio State is 10, 11, and 1 in those games. But in situations where one team is in the top 10 and the other team is unranked, which is the situation we have for this game, Ohio State is 9-1 when they are in the top 10 and Michigan is unranked. When Michigan's in the top 10 and Ohio State's unranked, it's 2-2. So Ohio State sprung 2 big upsets there. When Ohio State's in the top 10 and Michigan's ranked 11 through 25, Ohio State's 9-3. So overall, since 1951, when Ohio State's in the top 10 and Michigan's not, Ohio State is 18-4 in these games. Now, the problem is, I bet many Ohio State fans could name those 4 losses, and the losses stick with you. So I'll give you a moment to commiserate with your friends and family. Do a little trivia here if you want to pause and think to yourself, can you name the 4 times since 1951 that Ohio State was in the top 10, Michigan was not, and Ohio State lost those games? I think you can. So go ahead and pause it. All right, we're back. Do you have it? 1969, Bo's first year, right? Super Soft defending national champs now as juniors. The Super Juniors, they go up, they lose. Maybe they got sick on the train ride. They lose at Michigan. And then it's 3 Coops. 1993, Ohio State's in the top 10. Michigan's unranked. It's the only time it's happened since 1951. 28-0. Michigan boat races them. And then 95 and 96, Ohio State's in the top 10. Michigan is 11 through 25th. So it's like the beginning of the 10-year war, maybe the most, it's the Bo arrives on the scene, an absolutely legendary game, and then Coop being Coop for 3 times. And that's it. So that's what this is. So I think the John Cooper, Ryan Day stuff is nonsense. So go win this game, Ohio State. Go win this game, Ryan Day, and prove it's nonsense, because the deal is Ohio State is 18-4 since Woody got here when they're in the top 10 and Michigan's not. I just wanted to lay that out. Not an excuse. It is a bit of a reality check, because to your point, yeah, Urban and Tressel did win those games, but Urban faced it 2 out of 7 times. Tressel faced it 3 out of 10 times. Ryan Day has faced it every year until this game. And so I know you guys, you and Berm and Austin, I think being there on Tuesday and getting the vibes in the Woody, it seems like, right, there's a confidence, or they're talking about the right. It's because Michigan stinks.
Yeah.
They're allowed to be like this. And there's some of this. I'm not sure that are the Ohio State vibes for this game that much different than they were a year ago?
I mean, yes, I think so. I guess I can't recall, or maybe I'm misremembering. But yeah, I don't know that there was like a ton of confidence in Kyle McCord, right? I don't know that there was a ton of confidence in the defense finding a different form in a top 5 matchup. Like that conversation was still ongoing.
But there was a lot of like this class, these juniors, many of whom might leave, have never beaten Michigan. And for their legacy, Marvin Harrison Jr. and these guys, this is the moment that they seize so they can go out on top. A lot of that was there. Yeah,
it was. And there was also the assumption, I guess, that the Connor Stallion stuff was like kind of in the rear view for Michigan, and that this would be Ohio State versus Michigan on an even playing field for the first time in 3 years, or close to it, I guess. So I don't think they were bad last year. I don't know that I've ever sensed like this kind of confidence from Ryan Day going. Maybe his first one. By the way, you're using the AP poll for this?
I'm using the Bentley Historical Library.
Because Michigan because I think it's a semantics thing, but like Michigan was 13th in the playoff rankings and Ohio State was 1 when they played in 2019.
Okay.
So I guess
I always use the Bentley Library, which is Michigan Library. It just has like very good rivalry stuff, so I go by their chart.
Yeah, I'm sure it makes sense to use the AP poll. That's been consistent over the years, so I get it. But I don't know. I thought Ryan Day was very different this week. I don't know that.
I think he's different because Michigan's not good.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think there's a lot of
make that point. Like I don't think it's like, well, now the scars. They had the scars last year. Like I don't know that like they are playing very well. I think the number one difference this week is that Michigan's not good. And it's of course you're more confident when you know you're more talented than your opponent. They didn't know that last year. I'm not sure they were. I'm not sure they thought like we're a better football team than Michigan, right? So you look the last 3 years, I think we don't have to rehash what happened. I think all 3 games are different in a lot of ways. And I thought the game where they were most up their own butt, like mentally and emotionally, was 2 years ago at home, where it was like, okay, like that was just, I think like they probably are a better team, and some combination of psyching themselves out and Connor Stallions and whatever else leads to a game. But the other 2 I thought were more football. But it's just like, I don't want to overlook the fact that Ohio State's still very good and Michigan's not. And I'm not sure the analysis for this goes a ton deeper than that. And I think trying to pretend that there's a lot of like, well, now their confidence, whatever, they are playing well. The defense has played much better since Oregon. We all understand that. But like from an emotional part for the rivalry, I thought they were there last year. And then Michigan was just also very good. I don't know. I just think like maybe
I don't think they were there last year. I disagree with that. I don't think they were there last year.
So why do you think
Kyle McCord in the huddle saying don't make mistakes does not tell me that they were of that mindset last year.
So do you think they're of that mindset this year because of who they are, or because Michigan's not very good?
Both. Yeah. Why can't it be both?
It certainly can be both, but I just want to hammer the point. I haven't heard a lot of discussion about like, this is why. This is because it's just a different world. We have, as much as everybody remembers the upset, we can't pretend that when they're both in the top 10, it's basically an even game. And when one's in the top 10 and one's not, the other team wins like 90% of the time. Like that is a fundamental change to this game that I just feel like has not been at the front of the discussion. That it's a lot of like scars and they whatever. And it's like, Michigan's not good. Michigan's not good at football this year. So Ohio State should go boat race them probably.
I've thought that the whole time. I don't know who you're talking to when you're talking about the scar stuff. I think Michigan's not very good. That's why I picked Ohio State to win by 3 touchdowns.
Okay. So we'll can stop there. But it's like, I thought they were ready to do this last year and then they didn't. So if they're ready to do it again, and obviously like it's a season long thing of like the quarterback play is better. And that's very important for them, for the quarterback play to be better. Right. But Ohio State wins when Michigan's not competitive, 18-4 since 1951. So I just like really wanted to make that point. So what else is there about Ryan Day? Do you think Ryan Day I mean, for Ryan Day to have this quote about like how tough it's been on his family, and it's like the worst thing, one of the worst things other than his dad passing that's happened to him. But like he was also there last year. Like it's more of the same because it's stacking it. But like, he was as low as you could get, I thought, like after the second loss. It's like, how much lower can you get here? Like there was absolute vitriol aimed at him after the loss 2 years ago. And so I think that is like a continuation of stuff. And it's like, well, the vitriol from 2 years ago didn't make him win last year, but like that's just a reality. And whenever it is that they win, then he'll get over that. But it's just more of the same to me. I don't think like a quote like that this year is really any different than last year.
It's not that quote that I have grabbed onto when I think Ryan Day is approaching this a little differently. It was when he said that this game is a war, and in war there are consequences and casualties and plunder and rewards.
Plunder, yes. Yeah.
He was just like talking, like Urban talked about the game that way, and Woody talked about the game that way. And I don't know, like maybe it's purely performative because he knows he can say it and get away with it because Michigan is not very good this year. I have just never heard him talk about this game that way before in a way that kind of felt convincing. Like, I don't think that he's just like projected this confidence, and like he should be confident. Everything you said is true. Ohio State is very good. Michigan is not very good this year. Ohio State should feel confident they're favored by 3 touchdowns. But I kind of think Ohio State's coach should carry that confidence going into this game every year. And I don't know that he's always portrayed that. So that felt different to me.
I do think, and then it all wraps back around to doesn't have his head buried in the play sheet. He's more connected to the rest of the team. He's involved in special teams, like all those conversations that bringing in Chip Kelly, we've seen the dividends for that from game one do pay off the most this week, I think. Right. And do you think his ability to think like that, say things like that, is opened up because his head's not buried in a play sheet, because he's not front of mind, what are we going to run on 3rd and 6?
Yeah.
Front of mind, he is, let's get this entire roster prepared for the Michigan game.
Yeah, because I don't know what were you saying earlier about like the way you put it was playing with emotion, but not being. I don't know. You said it, not me. I can't remember. I don't know. But it's just having your team, I think, in the proper frame of mind for this game. I don't think he's done that the last few years. And maybe it's just because like they knew about the Connor Stallion stuff and it was driving him crazy, and that's all he could think about, and he was distracted and like they couldn't get the team ready to play. And I think some of that still lingered into last year, even though that stuff had happened before it, before that game. There seemed a bit more clarity from Ryan Day about the state of his team going into this game and like how ready they are for it. I think it's to your point, because he does not have his head buried in a play sheet. He's not in the offensive meeting room 23 hours a day trying to come up with the game plan, the crack Wink Martindale. He has Chip Kelly to take some of that off of his plate so he can go spend time with the defense. He can key in on some special team stuff. Maybe he's coming up with a wrinkle for this game. You know, like I think this, it's a difficult spot maybe to make too much of it because, as you've mentioned, Michigan is not very good. So like if Ohio State goes out and thumps Michigan, which I think is very possible, is that an indicator that every decision Ryan Day made in the offseason to take that stuff on his plate like led to this moment, and now here's the result, here's the benefit of that? Yeah. Or is it just that Ohio State's way better than Michigan and this would have happened anyway? I don't know. But I do think that there is something to the idea of him having given all that up to focus on some other things in preparation for this game that I just picked up from him just talking in the way that he acted in his body language or whatever. We read too much into that stuff. I understand that he just seemed to be in a different sort of state of mind going into this game than I picked up on the last few years.
I do think so a lot of people thought that Michigan not having to play Ohio State in 2020 gave that whole program a reset, right? Yes. That they didn't, just that not having to absorb another loss cleared their head a little bit. Ryan Day hasn't been able to clear his head in this game. And what 2020 did was actually like take momentum away from him, because it's like, hey, they had some really successful performances for 2 years when he was offensive coordinator. And then 2019, again, he came out, he felt that burden. They thumped him, and he felt the absolute relief of that, and then that was taken away. I think this is their COVID year. And I think Michigan not being good is an opportunity for Ryan Day to have confidence that he then can carry into moments again when Michigan is good again, and they will be good. So your point about, yes, Urban and Tressel found ways to beat top 10 Michigan teams, but also part of it is Urban had 5 out of 7 years where it wasn't a top 10 Michigan team. And Tress had 7 out of 10 years where it wasn't a top 10 Michigan team. And as great as Tressel was in this game, and it is the number one defining thing of him, 9 out of 10 against Michigan is unbelievable. And starting it off with an upset in 2001 and pulling them out of the Cooper era, and as an unranked team beating a number 11 Michigan team is unbelievable. And then he also got to beat up on Rich Rod a little bit. And then Urban got to beat up on Brady Hoke a little bit. And like, that's very helpful. It's very helpful. And Ryan Day hasn't had that chance. It's not an excuse. It is a reality. When every Michigan game is a banger, it's like, this is even. He probably should be 2-2 then. If it's even, then why are you 1-3? Okay. But this was never a world where, well, this is a Michigan team that you should beat every year. Not this era. Not Harbaugh era Michigan with Mike McDonald and Jesse Minter, and Ryan Day went from undressing Don Brown to like, oh, look, the 2 next defensive coordinators, one's already an NFL head coach and one will probably be one next year. That's a very different challenge. Mm-hmm. So it got a lot tougher. And yeah, they probably should have more than one. They should have won one of these last 3. But I think this could be like really good for Ryan Day. Go take care of business. Go do it. And remember what it feels like. But like there's no better way to have confidence than to think that your opponent sucks. Put that on a t-shirt, right? That's inspiring in and of itself. Like these guys stink. Yeah. I feel confident. It's just a situation for Michigan. I don't know. Maybe I'm too wound up about this, but it's like, yes, Tress dominated them. They were a tire fire. They were an embarrassment of a football program there for a while, right? And it's like, well, maybe one of them is like Tress made it happen because like he wins the 06 game and it's like, oh, now we got to replace Lloyd Carr and we got to keep up with. I get it, but also it's not the same thing as like the best of Jim Harbaugh. So anyway, I had a sheet of paper that I did, so I just I have segments and I have different parts. And this is what happens when this is this. And so then I had all that. So I wanted to talk about it. And when they're both unranked, then it's even too. It's 5-4. So when they're both good, it's even. When they're both not very good, it's even. And then when one's good and one's not good, it's not even at all. So who's number 2? You can have.
I would not have assumed that. Having never gone back and looked up that, I would not have assumed that about this rivalry. So that is good information. Number 2, I'll pick a player. I'll go with Mason Graham, the Michigan defensive tackle, because there's not much about this Michigan team I think that you would characterize as special, but I think Mason Graham is one of those things. And if there is a pathway for Michigan to make this a game, to perhaps even spring the upset as 3 touchdown underdogs, I think it starts with Mason Graham being an unblockable presence in the middle of that defensive line, in the middle of Ohio State's offensive line, as Ohio State is continuing to try to gel the 3 new guys on the interior. Carson Hinsman at center, Austin Sarabelt at left guard, and Tegra Shabola at right guard. It's a challenge, and I think Ohio State realizes that. Ryan Day acknowledges like these guys are really good. I think Will Howard said like this is probably the best defensive line that Ohio State has played this year, and I can probably get behind that idea. They played some good ones, like Penn State and Oregon have good defensive lines, and Indiana I think even has a good defensive line. But if you want to tell me this is the best, I think I might agree with you if you look at the collective, especially considering Oregon didn't have Jordan Birch when Ohio State played them. So I think combine Michigan's talent with Ohio State's offensive line being in flux, this is probably the most difficult challenge that they've had up front to handle the defense. And I thought this last year too, and it's not like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant like played well, and obviously the game ended with Kyle McCord getting hit on interior pressure and throwing an interception, but it's not like the Michigan defensive line took over that game and Ohio State couldn't do anything. Ohio State had a drive where they would run the ball down Michigan's throat for like 12 plays and scored a touchdown, and I actually in that moment kind of thought Ohio State was going to win that game. So I think that's probably likely to happen here, that Mason Graham will have some moments and there'll be some good lessons out there for these young guys on the interior of Ohio State's offensive line playing against an elite player. But if it's something more than that, if it is like pure domination from a guy like Mason Graham, or you can lump in other defensive linemen. I won't say them in case you want to draft one later on, but that's the way that this gets a little wonky for Ohio State, is if that is just much more of an issue than I'm envisioning it being.
Yeah. And there's the other part of it, and we talked about this a little bit on KOTN, which is like, what if he's great, but that's not enough, right? Like what does a great Mason Graham mean for this? And it could mean a lot, or it also could be like, he's great, and Ohio State still scored 37 and won by 3 scores, right? That he can't do it by himself. And when I brought up Derek Harmon in this conversation, it's like, well, you said Ohio State still moved the ball and scored a lot. It's like, well, Evan Stewart also helped Derek Harmon, the Oregon defensive tackle, a lot in that game, right? So he's great, but is that enough?
Yeah.
Can I take Will Howard?
You can take Will Howard. I had him on my list.
So I don't think it's actually a discussion. There's just some like yahoos saying like, oh, real Buckeye would ever listen. This is how it's going to be at some places from now on. You're going to get a guy for a year that's really impactful. But I think about Justin Fields in 2019, and he got hurt at the end of the Penn State game. Still one of the goofiest things Ryan Day's ever done. But then he is like toughing it out and going in the tent and coming back out in the 2019 Michigan game. Justin Fields, 14-25, 302, 4 touchdowns, 6 carries, 25 yards. And it's like, what do you remember about that performance from Justin Fields in his first Ohio State Michigan game? Is he incredibly skilled? He is incredibly skilled. Is he a great runner? Yes. Can he throw? Yes. But it's toughness, right? And so that, I absolutely think there is a chance that Will Howard creates a memory in the game in his one opportunity, and it is built around toughness. Is that possible in your mind?
I think so, especially if you want to entertain the idea, and I think you should, that Michigan's going to get some pressure on him. I thought he hung in pretty tough in times he was pressured against Indiana and delivered some really nice throws. I think he's kind of shown up in those kind of moments all year for Ohio State. He's played really well in all of Ohio State's big games thus far, and I expect him to play well in this one too. And he's got a poise to him that I think will help him kind of meet the moment if it is asked of him. Maybe Ohio State just runs away with this, and maybe that moment never comes. But if it does, I think he'll be ready for it. He seems very confident going into this game. He seems to, I think, have a pretty good understanding of what it means and what's expected of him. He certainly said the right things. I know people are fired up by the way that Will has talked about this game, which I think is important from your quarterback for the fan base to feel like your quarterback gets it. I think is important. So I appreciate that, but it's mostly just about the way he's played this year. I think he is capable and willing to do whatever Ohio State needs him to do to win this game. Like, I've been waiting for him to run more. We haven't really seen it yet. Maybe that comes in this game. Maybe he sheds off a sack and delivers a really nice touchdown pass or something. So he's a little bit unflappable, I think. I feel like the times that he's gotten himself into trouble is because like he's amped himself up a little too much. Not necessarily like somebody doing something to him. So I think he'll be able to continue to manage those emotions well in a game like this.
It's quite a thing. And I mean, you think about like when I started covering this team, it's like I was in the midst of the Troy Smith Michigan killer, right? And that you build up to something, and that what Troy did in 04 led to what Troy did in 05, led to what Troy did in 06. And when you get one shot at something like this, of course you get one shot in the season, but like this is the only time Will Howard's going to play Michigan, and that he's been introduced to this rivalry, and now so much is riding on him in this rivalry. You have a chance to be an all-timer. One shot. I wish there was a song about having one shot that I could cite here. But Will Howard's got it. But doesn't he seem like the kind of guy who would take it? Like, that's the whole point. Yeah. Like, I think every Ohio State person watching and listening to this is like, that's my guy. Do you think we are in full that's my guy mode for the Ohio State fan base with Will Howard after having some very specific deep ball discussions versus various points of the year and that kind of thing, and sliding down a second late against Oregon. Like, here we are. He's their guy.
I think so. And I think even for the people who want to have those specific deep ball conversations, there was still some element like, man, I really like this guy, but I'm worried about this one thing. So
yes.
Yeah, I think probably the Penn State game is where that started to change a little bit. He's done not that like PR should ever be a part of a college football player's job necessarily, but he's pretty good on the microphone. Like he is, I guess that's just being an adult and like understanding what his role is, but he has a knack for saying the right things when and especially did it this week about this game when he said like, I've learned that it's not just a rivalry, it's a way of life kind of thing. Like he knows what this is about, I think. And this is his one shot. And I would just be very surprised if he kind of wasted it.
Yeah. Okay. Pick 4. What do you got?
I'll stick with the Ohio State offensive player. I'm gonna go with Travion Henderson for a couple of reasons. One, I think he is playing better than Quinshon Judkins right now. Sorry, I'm taking these in as I'm talking. I think that he has a burst to him as a ball carrier that I think running the ball could be a little difficult for Ohio State in this game, just like down to down clean runs. Like it might be a lot like 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and then here's Trey for 45 kind of thing. Like kind of like what we saw last year. I think he's in the mode to maybe bust a run or two like that in this game. But and I also think there could be some screens perhaps if the defensive line for Michigan becomes more difficult to handle than I'm anticipating. A major part of this for me is how good Trey has been without the ball in his hands this year. He has been an incredible pass protector. And maybe I'm misremembering what he has been in his career prior to this, but I feel like he's made one of the biggest jumps I can remember a player taking. It's like a running back as a pass protector from wherever he's been previously in his career to this year. But maybe I need to go back and watch some stuff from his first 3 years. Maybe he's been good all along and I just haven't bothered to notice it. But he's been very good this year. I think they'll need it in this game. I think maybe, like I said, he's involved as a pass catcher. If you look at some of the stuff with Michigan's defense and like coverage grades on PFF, the linebackers are not very good. And whether that's using a tight end or a running back, maybe that's a spot where Ohio State can attack Michigan's defense. And maybe we see Travion get involved more as a pass catcher in this game than we have in any game previously. I think as high as 3 receptions against Purdue, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm having a hard time, I guess, like figuring out which offensive player might have the best game here for Ohio State. But Travion Henderson certainly stands a chance of being that guy.
Okay. I like it. I'll take Colston Loveland, the Michigan tight end. He's 3rd in the nation in tight end targets. He is by far the best player on the Michigan offense. If they can build an offensive game plan around him, I think he's had at least 8 targets in 9 games. I think he's had at least 3 games with more than 10 targets. I think he should probably have 15 targets in this game for Michigan to do anything. He is so far. He has more than double the number of targets of anybody in the Michigan pass game. He's in the 80s. Their receivers are in the 30s. He's in the conversation. I mean, Ty Warren from Penn State's the best tight end in the country, but because he does so many things. But Loveland's in the conversation for who's next. And he's an NFL player, and they've leaned on him. He missed the second half of the Northwestern game last week with an injury. But if they get anything going in the pass game, it's going to be to him. And so, again, a lot of times in these situations, we talk about matchups. Is it going to be Sonny Styles? Is it going to be Caleb Downs? Is it going to be Lathan Ransom? And it always winds up being some combination of things. Jordan Hancock certainly could have a role in that if they split him out on 3rd down. Maybe Lorenzo Styles will be involved there. That there's going to be a variety of guys, but he's the only threat. But he is excellent. He is, I don't know, he's like a 3rd round pick. Like, he's going to play in the NFL. Like, he is everything you want.
Oh, he might be higher than that. Yeah.
Like he is, it's one of these things. They're so dysfunctional. Michigan's so dysfunctional offensively, but this is a great individual player. And so if you're Michigan, you have to be scheming stuff up to try to get him open. And then it's going to come down to tackling him in the open field. So he's their shot to do anything throwing the ball, because otherwise they can't.
Yeah, he is. And when anytime they manage to be explosive in the passing game, it's been to him. There's just, you look at the target share, it's Colston, Loveland, and then a pretty big drop to the next guy. And I think he's been injured throughout the year. Like he's not missed a bunch of games, but he's missed time within games that he was not really in I don't think he's in the Mackey Award conversation, but he probably should be, just based off his talent alone, right? And I know, like, coming into the year, people probably would have said he was the favorite to win that award. He's just been a little banged up, but and he's banged up going into this game. He got hurt, as you said, last week. So we'll see if he's 100%. But even if he's not, they're still going to give him the ball a ton, because that's kind of the only weapon they have in the passing game.
Yeah. All right, pick 6. What do you got?
I'm torn between picking a couple of assistant coaches.
Ooh.
Give me Jim Knowles.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I could have picked either defensive coordinator here. Jim Knowles is just like on a heater. And I think he needs to keep it up. I don't like, this is not the same kind of challenge as Indiana. Michigan does not have a balanced offense. It's not the same challenge as Oregon. It is probably most similar to Penn State. Like Drew Aller is significantly better than Davis Warren. But when you think about just like running the ball, talented tight end, not a whole lot on the outside that threatens you, and maybe a quarterback who might try to run a little bit to help make up for their lack of playmakers in other places, I think this is similar to Penn State, just like a lesser version of that. I thought Jim Knowles had a nice plan there. He had a nice plan for Tyler Warren. He kind of allowed the quarterback scrambles to happen, because I don't think they felt overly threatened by that. And maybe that's a similar thing here. Their blitzes are so good now. They're so precise. They're so effective. I'm not nervous. I'm more curious, like, how much he might dial it up here. And like having the 2022 game in my mind, where it felt like the defense had that game controlled, and then he started blitzing, and then the game got loose. So I think like he has to, I don't even know, like, I'm not saying dial it back. I'm just saying, like, be correct at the times that you choose to send the pressure at Davis Warren, because if you do, like we saw it in the Indiana game, I thought he got pretty rattled in that game. He will throw interceptions. He hasn't thrown one since he's kind of been reinserted. He has thrown one, since he's been reinserted as a starting quarterback, but he threw 6 in his first 3 starts. He will get loose with the ball, I think, if you hound him, or if you make him get off of his first read and try to go through some progression. So I think there's opportunities there for Ohio State's defense to make a lot of splash plays in this game. You just can't put yourself in the similar positions you put yourself in 2022, when what I thought was a overmatched offense was given opportunities by busts from Ohio State's defense.
He got hit in the face with a 2x4.
Yeah.
In the 2022 game. That was like Jim Knowles' welcome to the rivalry, welcome to Ohio State moment. Because as people remember, like, it was going great until then. We were like, what a hire. Oh, this guy has saved Ohio State. And then he overblitzed, and Cam Brown missed a tackle, and away we went. And it was like, what are you doing? And then it was a whole year process of that. Now we're going to dial it back. And now all of a sudden they're a keep everything in front of you defense, but they're not aggressive enough. They're not forcing any turnovers. And now year 3 has entirely been the readjustment of those two things. Year 1, too much blitzing. Year 2, not enough. And it feels like, as you said, completely dialed in. But I would imagine, and do you follow Jim Knowles' sister on Twitter?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I saw what she said. Yeah.
She was tweeting like this week, like, I'm here in Columbus to see Jimmy, and he's up at 5 a.m. and he's home at 11 p.m. and I haven't seen him at all. I hope people understand how hard these coaches work. So she's a hoot. Like, she's a good like window into like the thought processes of the Knowles family. And she's a very, very supportive sister. So
I like her style because she's from Philadelphia, and you can tell by the way she tweets.
You can tell. Yeah. It's like, where's Jim from? Is Jim from Iowa? It's like, no, the Knowles family is not from Iowa. I would imagine he's going to have like a flashback moment, right? Like, that was he was like in shock, I feel like, after, because even after that, it was like, I was dumbfounded by the first blitz that allowed, because JJ McCarthy and Michigan had done nothing. They blitzed on third down. They put it on, let's miss one tackle and give up a 75-yard play. And it's all I wrote about after that game. Like, why did you blitz there? Why did you do that? And like in the moment, Jim Knowles and Ryan Day defended it. And then by the next year, they were like, yeah, we blitzed too much. And it's like they couldn't in the moment see like your aggression. Fans love aggression. That's the thing that you and I and fans should be like, aggression's always good. Don't play it safe. Don't play complimentary football. Aggression's always good. It's like, you're a coach. You can't think that way. So I think he's going to, and it's just different. Like you go to their place, it's tough up there, right? Man, it's great. But in your house, like that was the thing. And of the three, right? Isn't that the worst one? Because the first one, it's like, first one, it's Aiden Hutchinson is tearing people's arms off and it's snowing and it's like, oh man, Michigan's finally going to get one. What are you going to do? And then last year, they won the national championship and Ohio State played them down to the wire at their place. So it's a little bit like for all the things Ohio State didn't do and maybe all the things that Kyle McCord wasn't in the moment, they played them down to the final drive at their place in a season in which they went undefeated. So it's like, I think you can tip the cap a little bit and maybe, tip the binoculars too. But like you can
tip your glasses that have a camera in them. Yeah.
Yeah. But right. I mean, like those two, it's like, hey, but in that moment, because losing in 22 is what made a blip a trend. And Jim Knowles was at the heart of that. Oh, don't worry. We outbid everybody for the best defensive coordinator on the market. He's going to fix this. Our defense was screwed up last year. We got it. And then they didn't. So I think like he is, absolutely gonna feel that and feel the responsibility of that. And he's got to come through, but I think he will.
I think he will too. Because I think the first year was like borderline uncontrolled aggression.
Yes.
Like, at times like blitzing just to blitz, not always feeling like the entire defense was in sync with what was happening. And then they fully dialed back last year, as you said. And now it's just like everyone is in sync. It's a synchronized swimming routine. Yeah. But instead of popping up and doing handstands, they're running through the B gap and ripping your quarterback's head off.
Yeah. I would like an Ohio State synchronized swimming t-shirt. But then it's actually a picture of an Ohio State defensive player with a quarterback's bloody arm in his hands. That's a good t-shirt. All right. Can I take Jeremiah Smith 7th?
Yes.
Do you think there is a theory of the case of, I think you've expressed it, that he wasn't quite himself last week. They weren't pushing it. And maybe it's Jeremiah time?
I very much think there's a theory. I'm on board with you.
I also think it could be that Jeremiah time is the playoff. And this is one of those where, remember how Jeremiah Smith was really good in the regular season. And then in the playoff, he was the MVP of the playoff, which is actually an award I think they should have. That Jeremiah Smith, if Ohio State wins a national championship, goes like for 175 receiving yards a game, indoors and on fast tracks and that kind of thing, like fully healthy, ready to go, no longer a freshman. But it also could start here. And we're expecting no Will Johnson. They've had real problems at cornerback. Michigan has otherwise. And they don't have a guy to cover him. And maybe Ohio State's going to unleash him, I think is the Landis theory here.
Yeah, my theory all week, my thought all week has been that Ohio State's going to be able to throw it in this game because, it provided that Will Howard is upright and able to throw the ball, which I think he will be. The Michigan secondary is just not very good. They have like a nickel playing outside. They have a transfer from Albany playing the other corner spot. They benched their number 2 corner last week. They got a safety now playing in the slot. There's just a lot of moving parts there. And now all those guys could show up and play really well. And even if they do, I don't think they can cover Ohio State for 4 quarters. So they've like Washington threw on them, Oregon threw on them, USC had some success throwing the ball, Texas early in the year threw on Michigan. Like Michigan has had very good defenses in the past, and right now I think it has a very good defensive line and not much else on that side of the ball. So I think there's a vulnerability there that Ohio State can and will attack.
All right, pick 8 for you.
Can I? I'm going to pick Kirk Campbell. He's the Michigan offensive coordinator. I think he's kind of a dud, but I think he needs to draw up some ball plays here if he has that capability for Michigan to have a chance. This is my way of saying, like, watch out for the trick plays, watch out for the Donovan Edwards halfback pass, watch out for Alex Orji run game package, but maybe there's some throws built off of that Michigan hasn't shown much this year. Screens with Colston Loveland, screens with Donovan Edwards.
They don't throw a ton of screens. They don't do a ton of play action, which I'm surprised by. Like, they don't help out their quarterback as much as I thought they should.
I bet that Davis Warren is not great at turning his back on the play and then resetting and figuring out where the ball's supposed to go.
Oh, ball.
It's hard. I think it's better if he just catches a snap and can see this number one option. And then if he's not open, all bets are off. I think it's quite possible that Michigan, coming off of a national championship, understanding that it's outmanned, probably not feeling a ton of pressure to win this game, just really junks it up and sees where that gets them. And that can be on both sides of the ball. Wink Martindale is a pretty aggressive defensive coordinator, but maybe the Michigan offensive brain trust comes out with a handful of gadget plays here to try to get Jim Knowles zigging when they're going to zag, and maybe they can bust a big play or two that changes the tenor of this game.
I talked about this a lot on KOTN. This is the point I'll make about it here. In 2013, Michigan's offense was really struggling for the month coming into the Ohio State game, and Al Borges, the offensive coordinator, got fired at the end of the year. But they found a game plan for the Ohio State game. Mm-hmm. So, like, it was like, Al Borges stinks. This is not good. Michigan scoring like 12 points a game, and then they dropped 41, and Devin Gardner threw for 400 yards. And it was like a last gasp. It still wasn't enough. Brady Hoke was like, still, good try, but we need someone better. I think Kirk Campbell's getting fired. Would you be shocked? I'll be shocked if he's the OC next year.
They are not going to let him coach Bryce Underwood.
That is correct.
Yeah.
They're going to have some people who want to come do that. Mm-hmm. And so they just really stayed in-house with some stuff. Because even bringing in Wink Martindale was part of the family. And I think they're going to have to go outside the family. And you understand why you stay in the family when the family has been successful, but now the family has not been successful this year. So now you got to go outside. So I think that's going to happen, but it could be a last gasp. And why wouldn't you throw the kitchen sink if you're Kirk Campbell? All the stuff that you've been like maybe a little worried to try to call because you're not sure it's going to work. Well, if you just try to run 6-yard outs, that's not going to work either. So you better do something. So like, I think this is worthy for Ohio State fans to have on their mind, which is your point here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not that I think this guy is like some kind of whiz who's going to have something.
This is not Joe Moorhead.
No, it's not Will Stein. It's not Andy Kotelnicki. Yeah, it's Corey Dennis. No offense.
Can you believe all? So I didn't even. We were talking about so Tom Herman got fired. Kevin Wilson and Corey Dennis was on his staff at Tulsa got fired. But I forgot that Stan Drayton at Temple got fired. And then did you see that the interim after Stan Drayton got fired is Everett Withers? So there's just.
Oh yeah, Everett Withers was like in a non-coaching position there, wasn't he? He was like
just a mountain
assistant to the assistant manager or something like that.
And can I just make this point very quickly here again? You know what that means? That means that, like, are those guys actually great coaches, or were they great at Ohio State because Ohio State has great players, which means that they're middle managers and you can find lots of them. Anyway, that's my point. So like, wow, what a great one. It's like all these people who are hiring from Ohio State. It's like, are they great assistants, or is this just a great place to coach and it makes you look good? Players matter. 9th, I'll take Kalel Mullings. This is, I wish I knew, I don't know what happened, but early in the year, he had 3 straight 100-yard games as they beat Arkansas State, USC, and Minnesota. 15 for 153, 17 for 159, 24 for 111. And then he kind of vanished. And they started losing. But like the Michigan State game, 13 carries, 18 yards. The Oregon game, 8 carries, 16 yards. The Indiana game, 10 carries, 30 yards. And in the first half against Northwestern, they were terrible. And then he got going in the second half. He finished with 12 carries for 92 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. He found it again. And the point I was making on KOTN is like Michigan's yards per carry this year is basically the same as last year. And for a while, like Kalel Mullings was better. It was like, I don't know, Blake Corum was like a Heisman candidate for 2 years. And it's like, I don't know, is Kalel Mullings better than him? He's a good physical running back. And when you have him and then Donovan Edwards can be the complement to him, then that run game can be a little something. Yeah. I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know if he was in the doghouse. They started going to this other Campbell guy, but I think Kalel Mullings is going to be back to being a primary part of this run game. And if he can sledgehammer some 4-yard carries, especially in the first half, I think that's their other chance to move the ball. Sledgehammer Kalel Mullings and then flip some stuff to Colston Loveland. That's the offensive plan. And throw in a couple Kirk Campbell trick plays. But he's a pretty good physical running back. And I'm curious to see if he can do anything in this game because he has early in the year. He just hasn't done it lately.
I mean, he killed USC, right? And he wasn't super efficient that game. He kept running for like 2 yards, 2 yards, 2 yards, 2 yards. And then with a minute left, he ran for 60 and put Michigan inside the 5 and Michigan won the game. Like he has a knack for, it's actually not dissimilar from what Donovan Edwards, I think, has done in big games throughout his career. You're just like watching him, like, is this guy any good? And then he runs for 70 yards. So like they both kind of have that quality to them. It puts a premium on tackling for Ohio State's linebackers and defensive linemen, obviously. If those guys, either one of those backs, are not being explosive, then Michigan has a heck of a time scoring. Just because they're not going to 4 yards at a time move the ball down the field and then finish the drive with a touchdown. They have to pop a big run that I think is more predicated on you taking a banana angle or missing a tackle than it is on them scheming you up, or the running backs being super dynamic. But that element is there for both those guys. They've shown it this year. So it's a good pick because I think both those backs have kind of fallen out of the conversation a little bit as Michigan's offense has sputtered.
Yeah. If he didn't wake up in the second half last week, like there's no way we wouldn't talk about any Michigan running backs at all. But they did. They woke up and looked a little bit like their old selves. All right. Last pick to you. What do you got?
I'm going to pick Caleb Downs because I just feel like he needs to be on a list of the 10 most important people in any game he's ever playing in.
We picked him 10th last week, and then he provided the most exciting play in Ohio Stadium in a decade.
Yeah, so like now there's that too, right? There's the special teams aspect of this, and maybe he'll have an opportunity to return some against Michigan. He's just become he's always was going to be an integral part of this defense, but even like the way they're structuring it, where they're doing a lot of stuff where they'll kind of play the 2 linebackers a little wider and then drop Caleb Downs into the middle of that, where he's almost playing like a middle linebacker kind of thing. You know, in a game where the team is going to run the ball a ton, Caleb Downs is going to be very heavily involved in stopping that. I'm sure he'll find himself in matchups with Colston Loveland throughout the game. I'm wondering, as Jim Knowles' blitz package continues to evolve, we saw a little bit last week, like Lorenzo Styles came on one, Jordan Hancock came on one. I think there's more getting the safeties in the mix with some of these pressure looks, and maybe that involves Caleb Downs getting behind the line of scrimmage and making some plays too. He's just been like everything you'd hoped he'd be, and I think perhaps even more than that. I understand he doesn't have 100 tackles like he had last year at Alabama, but he makes impact plays and multiple impact plays every single game, which is why he's a finalist for the Thorpe Award and the Bednarik Award. I think he'll end up winning one of those, maybe the Thorpe. He's just a special talent, and I think that will show up in this game in a few different ways. Yeah.
Has to be on the list. And again, to add in the special teams thing is really important. Can I make one wild card pick very quickly? Dominic Zavada, the kicker for Michigan, is 15 of 16 on field goals this year, but he's 6 of 6, 50 plus. If it's dragging a little bit and nobody's moving the ball great, but it's like, oh, Ohio State got a stop on 3rd and 7 at the 38-yard line. Oh, that's good. Like, what's Michigan going to do? Are they going to go for it on 4th and 7? Or are they going to punt it? It's like, no, they're probably going to trot out this guy to try to kick a 55-yard field goal, and he has a pretty good chance to make it. So if it's a little bit of a draggy game, it's not that Jaden Fielding's been bad for Ohio State. He's 8 of 9 this year. He has not tried a 50-yarder, but I'm just thinking like that. They've had a run of good kickers here, right? Jake Moody, like, right? This is kind of what Michigan has done. If it gets a little draggy and all of a sudden we're in a long field goal matchup in the first half, Michigan has an edge there. So there could be a thing where the Ohio State defense is playing a little bend but don't break. And maybe there's some goofy stuff happening on offense, and Michigan's ahead like 6-0 because Dominic Zavada nailed a 49-yarder and a 54-yarder. And it's like, what? Why? Michigan's offense stinks, but they have 6 points. I'm just throwing it out there. Be aware of how good their kicker is, right?
He's 6 for 6 from 50 yards. Did you say that?
Yeah.
He hasn't missed. His only miss is a short one from 30 plus. He's not missed yet this year.
Yeah. So like really good, like one of the better kickers in the North. So like just something to be aware of a little bit. All right. So we have some feeling surveys and we have like just some hardcore ball surveys. Let's get a from our tech subscribers first, a feel on the game, Landis. Ohio State favored by 20.5. What do you think will happen? Ohio State wins by 20 or more. Ohio State wins by 21 or more. Ohio State wins by 20 or fewer, or Michigan wins. 50% said Ohio State will win by 20 or fewer. So Michigan with the points. 48% said Ohio State will win by 21 points or more. And 2% are the most scarred. They said Michigan will win. But this is one of those, again, like just be aware of this. There's definitely, we're going to get to some texter comments. There's definitely some vibes of like a hang 100 vibe. Like I want revenge on Michigan for the last 3 years. As a fan, I don't just want Ohio State to win. I want to make Michigan pay. But half the people think it's going to be 20 or fewer, right? So I do think there's at least some acknowledgement there of it is a rivalry game. If Michigan sits on it a little bit, this might not be a game where Ohio State's dropping 55.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this the other day. The only Big Ten team Ohio State scored 40 against is Purdue, right? It hasn't gotten to that number in any other Big Ten game, and it's just like it's a lower scoring Ohio State team. I think mostly of its own choosing because it's just kind of playing slow. Ryan Day did say something on Tuesday. He said he was asked about like Will Howard's completion percentage, and then he went on like a tangent about statistics, and he said, "Well, if we were playing faster and playing up tempo, Will's numbers will be better, Travion's numbers will be better. Like all these guys would have the numbers you come to expect from Ohio State skill players." And part of me was like, did he say that because he thinks they're going to play faster in this game than they have previously? I don't know. Like maybe that's a curveball that's on the table for Ohio State here, is ramping up the pace a little bit, which would then help them get to a bigger number.
Yeah. Doing a Natty Faith survey every week. What's your faith in Ohio State's ability to win a national championship right now? Scale of 1 to 10. 10 is confident, 1 is not. 7.93, which is pretty good. It was up above Oregon, up above 8 going into Oregon. It has been slowly climbing back up. It was down in the 5s after the close call against Nebraska. I'm going to make you guess on this one. How do you feel about Jim Harbaugh not being Michigan's coach anymore? Here are the choices I gave. I'm glad he's gone because I don't like him. I'm glad he's gone because Michigan was a better program with him. Or I wish he was still here because I wanted Ohio State to beat him. So it's like one of those things. Like, if are you glad he's gone because you respect him, or are you glad he's gone because you hate him, or do you actually still wish he was here? What do you think won?
Wish he was here so they could beat him.
Yeah. What percent do you think that got?
72.
57.
Okay.
So it's still, but like more than half still wish he was here, which is the bottom line. 29% glad he's gone because I don't like him. 15% glad he's gone because he made Michigan a better program. I did ask a Connor Stallions question. There's still something to come out with that, right? Like it's just not been anything anyone's talking about, but we're still waiting because there was a notice of allegations, and then I think Michigan had 90 days to respond or whatever, and it happened at the beginning of the season. So I guess we're coming up on that. Is that right? I think they might have asked for an extension. Okay. Well, sometimes you do that. If you didn't get your project done, you ask for an extension.
Yeah.
Can I finish my project over the Thanksgiving holiday? Would be a thing. Dear NCAA, dear Charlie Baker, can we finish our project? And then you're up on Sunday night. I mean, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna work on it on Friday. And it's like, no, we want to go shopping. right? It's like, can I work on it Saturday? Oh, you want to watch some games. And then 60 Minutes comes on Sunday night, and you're working on your project that you asked for an extension for. So I'm just trying to tell the Michigan Compliance Office, don't wait for that 60 Minutes clock to start. Still gives me a knot in my stomach. Oh, the 60 Minutes clock, that is the number one thing of like, little Dougie has just been procrastinating his butt off all weekend, and 60 Minutes starts and you realize you have a book report due and you haven't started the book yet. My God, I'm making myself sick thinking about it. Just don't want that to happen in Michigan Compliance. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of an edge do you think Michigan gained from Connor Stallions? 10 is a huge edge. And the main reason they won, 1 is no edge at all. What do you think it was, Landis?
8.7.
7.64. Okay. So, last one. What is your confidence in Ryan Day as a head coach to do what is needed to beat Michigan on Saturday? 10 is extreme confidence. 1 is no confidence.
7.3.
8.42.
Oh,
feeling pretty good. So, like, this is one of those, again, it's like, it's not that I'm comparing them, but it's like, how much do you think Connor Stallions helped Michigan compared to how confident are you in Ryan Day? You're more confident in Ryan Day. And we know how mad Ohio State fans were. So for them to be even more confident in Ryan Day than they were thinking Connor Stallions helped Michigan cheat and make like really matter, that's pretty good. Like, to tell Ryan Day, Ryan, hey, if you have any questions about like what the fans think of you, you're over the Stallions threshold. It's like, really? That's not a bad thing to be. Like that actually tells
the
me
Stallions
something there.
line. Yeah, I like
the
that.
Stallions line. Yeah. This is a feelings survey now, and then we'll get to some feelings responses. How much would you say Ohio State losing to Michigan the last 3 years has negatively affected you? 10 is a huge negative effect on your life. 1 is not that big of a deal. What do you think the number was?
8.6.
6.78. So I feel but I feel good about that, right? That it's not 9.5. That it's not like every single dedicated, educated, loyal Ohio State fan that subscribes to the tech service is like, it's completely ruined my life in every way. I think about it every minute of every day. It has ruined my life 1,000% completely. That's a 10. That it's a 6.78, I think is good. Doesn't mean you don't care, but that's pretty functional to me. So I feel good about that.
Do you have how many 10s there were?
There were 55 10s. So that's like 14% of the people were 10s.
Yeah.
We got 456 responses on that, and 55 people were 10s. The number one answer was an 8. So overall, how much do you enjoy being an Ohio State football fan? 10 is it makes your life much happier. 1 is it makes you miserable to follow OSU, and you'd be better off not rooting for them. Because some people are like, I'm born into this. It's not my fault, but it just brings me misery. I can't enjoy the success, and the failures, even though they are few and far between, absolutely guts me. Why do I do this to myself? But I can't help it. That's a 1. A 10 is like, it's the greatest thing ever. So what do you think it was?
8.1.
8.92. Practically a 9.
Closer.
I love it. Almost half the people said a 10. Almost half the people said a 10. Like, that is why we do this, because that is so fun to be part of a community, to be part of something that can take your mind off stuff. Like, beautiful. I'm flying high off that answer. This is an interesting one. How long does an Ohio State loss to Michigan stick with you? Ready? Mm-hmm. It's over by the time Monday rolls around, about a week until Christmas, the whole year until the next game, or my whole life. I never forget a Michigan loss. So like the weekend, a week, a couple months, a year, or forever. What do you think won?
A year.
A year until the next game, 56%. My whole life, 21%. Till Christmas, 13%. About a week, 8%. Okay by Monday, 3%. So
I thought that would have been 0.
So this is just like, this is how much this matters to people. And then which most closely matches your feelings on this Ohio State season? I have a knot in my stomach most of the year. They need to beat Michigan and then win it all. Just like, I almost can't enjoy it. I'm just like, we've got to get back. Like, right? They're winning, but I have been on edge a lot. Like, so at least you're acknowledging the good, but still it's like, It's been fun, but the Oregon loss and the Nebraska game like had me kind of nervous. Or it's been an awesome, exciting ride with national championship hopes. You know, like what the heck? They might be the best team in the country. What do you think won?
It's been fun, but Oregon and Nebraska made me nervous.
Awesome, exciting ride with national title hopes won 41%.
Oh, nice.
So good for that. Fun, but Oregon, Nebraska made me nervous 30%. Winning, but I've been on edge a lot 15%. Not in my stomach the whole year 13%. So again, like that the knot in the stomach crew, we acknowledge you. We're here for you. The community of Ohio State fans is here for you. That is not 46% makes me feel good. Yeah. Because when your team is this good, I don't think it's ideal to have a knot in your stomach the whole time when you're rooting for probably the most talented team in the country, right? So we get why it happens, but I hope it doesn't happen to too many people.
Mm-hmm. So it's at the end up 85, 87% are mostly enjoying themselves. Yeah. If not having an outright great time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Like more than 40%, just like, let's go. This is awesome. Sports. So, okay. So then the thing I also asked Landis was, send us your how much has losing to Michigan ruined my life kind of answers, and how much has being an Ohio State fan made you happy kind of answers. So we're going to be mad. We're going to let you be mad, and then we're going to have you be thankful. And that's how we're going to end the show. But we're also going to talk about crock pots first. Can we talk about crock pots real quick?
Yeah.
I was saying this to you before the show. I feel like there's a version of this that could be a book that is just expressing the passion. And I think that to have an Ohio State fan book, and then if you want to do it for other fan bases, like it's a matter of like how it connects you to people, but also like how much you care and how much it affects your life. And the crockpot story is one of those from Jeff. The game is very important to me in my household because I live in a house divided. My wife is a Michigan fan. She's great. Other than that, I swear. My friends all said when we first got together that I'm one of the biggest Ohio State fans they know, and they could never picture me with a Michigan fan in a million years. We try to keep it civil for the most part. The biggest wager we have is that we have both an Ohio State and Michigan crock pot. And whoever wins the game is the crock pot we use throughout the year. It's been a while since the Ohio State crock pot has seen action.
Love that.
So, hey, Ryan, you feel like you're trying to get the Ohio State crock pot out of the cupboard?
We need to turn these crock pots into a rivalry trophy.
For real. Oh, can you imagine? Because that's the whole thing. Like they said, it's like it's the game. It doesn't need a trophy. But I'm not sure anybody ever thought of a crock pot trophy.
Yeah.
I think both sides could get behind this.
I think so. I'm in favor of it. I think we need to make it happen.
Yeah. It's the game. It's the crock pot. I'm here for it. So our guy, Doug DeLillo, who is just an absolute banger of a human being and just cares so much, talked about how thankful he was and that it's like Ohio State fans have it better than 99% of fan bases. And he loves the community. I love the community and appreciate it more and more as I age. I would be ungrateful to not recognize the privilege it is to love Ohio State football. Being born into it, in a sense, is a blessing, and being from Ohio and attending Ohio State makes me thankful for it on most days. But then he also is mad about losing to Michigan. Losing to Michigan has been more difficult for me because I have a 4-year-old who will be 5 in May, and he has never seen Ohio State beat Michigan. I've never gotten to hug my children after we've beaten Michigan. I know that sounds dramatic, but I imagine that moment from the first time I knew I would have a son. I have 2 now. A 4-year-old and an almost 2-year-old, and they are both waiting on first wins versus the team up north. It's put a little bit of sadness on the holiday season for me. The cheer is less cheery to finish the year when we don't get that coveted win over Michigan. It is absurd to think Ohio State hasn't won anything of significance in over 3 years now. No matter their record, if we win on Saturday, I will feel a release of weight off the shoulders I haven't felt in most of my life. Goes back to being thankful for all those years and years of beating them like it was nothing. DeLillo wants to hug his kids in the joy of victory. It's like, hey, guys, I know that everybody inside the program really wants to get this win anyway, But can you let DeLillo hug his kids? This is how much it matters to people, Landis.
To be fair, I'm sure he's still hugging his kids, but hugging his kids in response to Ohio State beating Michigan. Yeah, maybe that could be the rivalry trophy. It's just a nice bronze statue of DeLillo with one kid under each arm, just squeezing the heck out of him after an Ohio State win. Yeah.
I saw a thing the other day on my Instagram that was people like making pots, like on the spinner thing. I don't know what it's called. It's like in Ghost.
Kiln?
But then I guess the kiln's where you fire it. What's the wheel, like when you're making the pot, right? And
we've
then
reached the extent of my pottery knowledge.
We've reached the pottery portion of the podcast. Welcome to Pottery Corner. So then they were making that, they were spinning it so it's still soft, and then you hugged the pot like it was a tall pot. And then you hugged it, and then the hug made the pot its shape. So it could be a solo hug. It could be a group hug. So I think that would be it. And that's the trophy now. That like you get Sharon Moore and Ryan Day to hug a pot and then put it in the kiln, and then the winner gets to take it home. So it's either a crock pot or a hug trophy.
Or hug trophy. Yeah.
We're here to help. So listen. You guys are just ridiculously unbelievable. I feel like, honestly, like this is like you, it's like just to read these, like it was getting me choked up a little bit. And so I can't read them all. We get hundreds and hundreds of these, but I read them all. And I'm going to save Landis. If the mood is right on Sunday, and I think everybody knows what that means. If it's the right mood for it, then maybe I'll read some more of these on Sunday, on the Sunday Sound Off.
That sounds great.
To talk about like how much this means to people. But let's read some of the ones about being mad. Okay? This is Brian. Brian V, our guy. I feel for Ryan Day and all the players. It cost me a lot to go to Ohio State and make it through, and I feel bonded to anyone who plays in the name of my school. I will never not be angry about the last 3 years on behalf of Buckeye Nation. I hope all of Buckeye Nation is united in this feeling. So I am also disappointed when anyone puts a single person above Buckeye Nation. Buckeyes shouldn't be playing for Ryan Day this week. They should be playing for the entire brotherhood and sisterhood. We all have been affected. We haven't all had the ability to influence the outcome of those games. Ryan Day is not a victim, and it's not good for him or others to treat him as one. He has a beautiful opportunity for revenge that many would die for. I hope in my life I have a beautiful opportunity for revenge. How sweet is revenge, right?
I do love describing an opportunity for revenge as beautiful.
Yeah. So that's the opportunity here. Sweet revenge. Randy, 3 losses to Michigan and then the terrible Cotton Bowl led me to not listen to any podcasts. Oh my God. That's as bad as it gets, right?
I bet that was actually really refreshing. Sounds like a blessing.
What did we do? Why? No, it makes sense. Oh, not the first person to say that. We get that. Like I've been doing this a long time and been in texting services for a long time. The number of people who were like, it's nothing personal. I just cannot listen to you talk about this right now. I will see you in July.
Sure.
The message of those I've got, win or lose, joyous or angry. Sometimes they just need a break from Doug. So I get it. But like sometimes you don't want to dissect something that didn't go well. So Randy, I get it. I'd put so much emotional energy into how well college kids play play a game that it literally ate me up and ruined my mood. Even the awesome recruiting in the offseason couldn't shake it. I started back slowly, and I'm still trying to not get emotionally involved, but 3 seasons ruined in a row took a toll, and I'm not the same fan I was following the Michigan State game in 2021. Now, that does make me a little sad that like you're not the same fan that you were, because that really was a peak. I hope that when Ohio State beats Michigan again, whenever that is, that you can get it back, Randy, because that would be a great thing to strive to return to. This is Michael V. Jack Sawyer summed it up better than anyone ever could. It's ruined my life for 3 straight years. I know that's pathetic, but I feel each of these losses to the depths of my soul. It has made me even pettier than I already was when it comes to this game. If and when we win this game again, there will be a huge sigh of relief felt by this whole state. It has been 3 years of mourning, and it's time to come to an end. Now, I would argue that like becoming more petty might be good.
It depends. Works for some people.
Yeah, it does work for some people. Aaron, in response to the feelings question, the last 3 years were the only 3 Michigan games I've ever been to. Oh my God. And have been the most miserable game experience in my life. And honestly, outside of very major events, up there with some of the worst experiences in my life. Don't worry, I'm not going this year. It's only Tuesday when Aaron wrote this, and we still have a full game to play on Saturday, but I feel my eyes start to swell at the thought of an Ohio State win this weekend. The last 3 years have been straight from hell. I'm not going to read like 700 of these, but I want you guys to get the impression. This is JJ. It's a good one. Doug, you've heard me rant way too many times about this. It's my own dang fault for moving to Michigan in 2016 to be near family and then meeting my wife here. But these past 3 years have been absolute hell for me. I think about moving away from this state constantly. I'm nauseous this week thinking about the game. Because this is one of the things, Landis, when people are like, it's making me think about moving.
Yeah.
This stuff matters. I've lost a friendship over this rivalry, and I'm not even someone who talks trash. Michigan fans up here just can't be rational. My former friend told me that the entire Michigan cheating scandal, which I hadn't even brought up to him, was fake news, and that Gene Smith and Ryan Day's brother were behind the whole thing, and that he was cutting me out of his life because Ohio State was so despicable that he couldn't in good conscience be friends with an Ohio State fan anymore. Absurd. This is why I want to make a coffee table book. It's like, oh, you have a lovely home. Oh, could I read your coffee table book? Let me read this lovely letter about the end of a friendship. Maybe it's not a coffee table book.
I have a book that I bought when I was at the Grand Canyon about all the different ways people have died falling into the Grand Canyon. So like people want to read those things.
Oh, it's like that. You bought that at the Grand Canyon, like in the Grand Canyon official gift shop?
Yeah, it's called Death in the Canyon. Yeah.
No, it's not.
I swear to God. I would actually...
Okay, now I feel
bookshelf. It's on my bookshelf behind me. Yeah, it's on the bookshelf behind me.
We're completely free to do this then. I was like, people don't want to read about misery. Death in the Canyon. The daily needling from Michigan fans in my life who know where my loyalties are is exhausting. I need them to just stop talking and be quiet. Ryan Day, hang 100 on them, please. So like that's like a real life thing. Losing friends and wanting to move. Those are real life things. This is Isaac R. I know for a fact that the level to which a loss affects me is unhealthy and unproductive. And a loss to Michigan is somewhere in the range of 3.5 times the anguish of a normal loss. And he goes through like all the reactions of the different years. I thought I might be done for the foreseeable future. Like this had really made him sort of question what was up. Seeing Michigan have nice things, especially after cheating their brains out, pretty well broke me for a while. I want this one so bad. This is just a freaking game, and it's adversely affected my life so much, and I've tried and failed several times to interact with it in a healthier way, and I've come up empty every time. So I guess them winning is the only thing keeping me from carving a smile into my face Saturday night. I'm not saying I recommend this. I'm saying it is out there, right? Mm-hmm. There's a part of this that is heartbreaking to me, but also like if you've tried, we're on a kick. Let sports be joyful. Enjoy your team. Enjoy all of Ohio State's success. Life is difficult enough. Don't let this thing that should be a good thing become a bad thing. But Landis, you can't control how people think. So it is not a shock to us to hear these kind of stories.
You can't control how people think. You can't rewire decades of emotions tied into this too, especially for people, Ohio State fans of a certain age, right, who like lived through the 90s and then experienced like the Trestle and Urban runs, and then that, like I get how that could like be pretty devastating, right? So yeah, I feel bad, like but I also I understand where you're coming from. I think
we can't stop it. This is a different Brian V. My neighbor is a graduate of that awful university, and I do not want to sit through another instance of him running through his or my house waving the Michigan flag. That's not fun. So like you're an Ohio State fan and you have a Michigan neighbor, and when Michigan wins, he comes in your house and waves the flag. I would lock the door. Like that's one of those things, like celebrate your win. I get it. Don't bring your flag in my house.
Keep your flag out of my house.
Keep your flag out of my house. That wouldn't happen in Philly. Can you imagine if a Cowboys fan ran through your house?
Nope.
They wouldn't get out.
They wouldn't run out of the house, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. So, yeah. This is Brandon. I was mad until I realized how much they cheated. A win this year would be one of the biggest of my lifetime to show that most of the reason that they won was because they are cheaters. If Ryan has the chance to run it up, I hope he does. Right? This was sort of, it felt like that was part of the deal with the game last year, right? Which I think it was why it was almost extra hard for Ohio State fans. Like, hey, they stopped the counter stallion stuff. Now we're going to prove that was the only reason they won the first 2 years. And then Michigan wins without that and without Jim Harbaugh on the sideline. So like this, that was tough. That was tough for Ohio State fans, right? That was extra, right? It felt like, okay, here's a line in the sand, and then it wasn't.
Yeah, that's why I wonder, like, which of the last two stings more. Yeah, at least in retrospect, I bet it's last year. Like in the moment, 2022 had to be absolutely gutting, but now knowing what we know about what was going on, and then presumably it being less of an impact last year, and Ohio State still lost, I bet that hurts more.
Luke C. When we lost last year, I was on vacation with my family, but when we lost, we decided to cut it short and drive home, and not a single word was said the entire way home. That's ruining vacations, man. Like vacations are being ruined out here. This is not great. Nathan J. Another one. This is tough. Last year for the game, I was at a sports bar. I drank too much after the Buckeyes lost, got food poisoning from the bar food, and was emotionally devastated from a third consecutive Buckeye loss. It is the worst I've ever felt in my life. I now associate that feeling with losing to Michigan. So when I think about losing to them, it makes me physically sick. Might be dramatic, but it is what it is. Death in the Canyon. Why am I doing this? Is this good? Is this
how many more of these we're going to read? When do we get to read the nice ones?
2 more angry ones. Okay. I want to bring people down before I build them back up, right? This is what you're a 5-star. This is a 5-star group of dedicated, educated, loyal Ohio State fans. I'm breaking them down. And then we build you back up. This is Austin P. Everything about losing this one hurts, especially the past 3 years. Their fan base and beat never shut up. Put an F word in there. They genuinely don't care that they were caught cheating. They laugh about it. I hope Ryan Day and the Buckeyes crush their souls. There is no respect left in this rivalry. It is hate week, and I hate that university. If you're wondering how far that hate goes, read this text again and see if you notice a particular letter not present throughout the entirety of this reply. I won't use that letter again until the final whistle Saturday after the Buckeyes are victorious. I appreciate that kind of thing. I did a story like that one time with none of that letter, because it's a good challenge to yourself as a writer. This is the last one from the 480, and I just cannot get to all of them. I am not sure that mad is a good enough word to describe the feeling of the last 3 years when it comes to Michigan. I'm enraged that the legacies of some of the greatest Ohio State players are tarnished with losses to a team that sold their soul to climb out from under the boot that Urban and Day put them under. That the greatest rivals schemed and deceived the sport with lies and disguises to beat the Buckeyes and win a championship. I don't want to win Saturday. I want vengeance. I want Ryan Day to stomp them down again. 21-point favorites, rebuilding Michigan team, couldn't care less. I hope they do everything they can to drop the hammer and never let off the gas. I got asked this on a radio show, Landis, like that idea, does Ohio State need to win big? And I said, I'm not sure, like a win. I just like Ohio State fans in the program need a win. 60 points would be great, but like 3 points is enough. Do you kind of agree with that? Or where are you on like what this program needs if in fact it does beat Michigan?
Just a win. Yeah. I mean, a total boat racing would be great, I think, and make people feel really good. Win by one. That's all I think is needed at this moment.
Yeah. All right, so this is why you are thankful to be an Ohio State fan again, and I couldn't get through them all, but I'll just read a smattering to end on a high note here. See, it would have been worse to have been like, oh my gosh, Bill, these people are so thankful. Now let's detail in very specific words why their lives have been ruined. Yeah, let's start with food poisoning. Let's end with vacations cut short. No, we did that first. Now we're thankful. This is Dylan. I'm thankful that no matter what college football turns into, with NIL, conference realignment, TV deals, etc., Ohio State will always be on the inside looking out. It pains me to see what has become of teams like Washington State, but I can sleep well at night knowing that won't ever happen to the Buckeyes. I'm also grateful to you guys and this texter thing. I'm the only Buckeye in my family, and I live on the West Coast, and it helps me feel connected. That's why we're here. because this is a very important community for a lot of people, and we are privileged to be a little part of it. Brian S. I'm thankful mainly because my mother, who recently passed, was always at our house for Ohio State games, and she absolutely loves them as we all do. Also, because I couldn't imagine being a college football fan and your team not being an annual contender for the national championship. So those are the ones that always get me, Landis, right? When it's like a team or a sport or a game brings you together with family, but it also reminds you of the people that you've lost when you have those moments. Like, that is the stuff that I can't. That's the stuff that gets you, doesn't it?
Yeah, right in the heartstrings. But I also, like, there's a lot of, I can't imagine like every game you've watched with that person was the most enjoyable thing in the world. But the fact that you can grab onto the good memories and
yes,
be reminded of that person. Yeah, that's nice.
Ryan B. I'm thankful I now have 4 kids under 10 that I get to share the love of the Buckeyes with and like to watch and cheer them on. And it is a tradition that has been passed down from my dad and grandpa. That's the good stuff there. Passing it down. Are you kidding me with the passing it down? This is the thing. So did they have one about life at the Canyon? Do they have a coffee table book at the Grand Canyon that's just like, here are all the people who came to the Grand Canyon and didn't die?
And
that'd be a good one too.
Went back home to their families.
Yeah.
No, they don't have that book.
I had a lovely time. The view was great. We got ice cream. This is that. This is Jim B. As a 46-year-old man with a stressful job, 2 young girls, and the insane world we live in, I use Ohio State football as my relief valve. It allows me to stay connected with friends I likely would not otherwise, and I've connected multiple disparate friend groups through Buckeye fanaticism. That's provided me with a group of dudes that are a text stream even more important than this, meaning our text service. But this is a close second. We'll take a close second.
That's fair.
Buckeye football is my escape. And I am thankful for KOTN, the podcast, and everyone behind it for helping to fuel my escape. You are all awesome, even if I think Doug sometimes is a contrarian for contrarian's sake. Why did we have to say that part? Look at that. It was the heartstrings, and then it's like, I don't know about this Doug guy.
Yeah.
Not the first time that we've gotten texts like that either. I love the Buckeyes. Doug, I'm still trying to come around on, but I love the Buckeyes. We're okay with that. This is Brian T. I am thankful for the community and the countless opportunities to come together and put the craziness of the world away for 3 hours on any given fall Saturday and unite for a common cause. Put it on a throw pillow. That's what it's all about. This is Ty S. With the divisive political climate we live in now, I find it harder and harder to connect with relatives. We seem on separate sides of a chasm that seem to get farther apart, except for Ohio State. That's the one topic we can all agree on, and it brings us closer together, reminding us that we do still love each other. Honestly, without Ohio State, I would have severed ties with at least half of my extended family, and I don't think that's good for anyone. That's real talk.
That is real talk. I'm glad you haven't done that.
That's football at its best. That's what this sport can do. Gary B says we have a quality program year in and year out. If winning the Natty every year was easy, everyone would do it. So, like, a little perspective there. We appreciate that. Let's see. Howard. I live in Charlotte, which I love, but I'm originally from Dayton. And the Buckeyes keep me connected to my roots. They represent not only the team I grew up rooting for, but the Midwestern values and commitments that matter most to me as an adult. Faith, love for those nearest to you, and a commitment to work hard toward excellence. Living in Clemson, South Carolina, and Georgia country, wearing my Ohio State gear feels like I'm both representing the Buckeyes and the North. And then I'm a better person than the Georgia fans around me. Agree with that. I absolutely love being a Buckeye fan. One of my favorite things about me. That was what I really liked about that text, was like that being a Buckeye fan is one of your favorite things about yourself. That's a very good thing. Anthony K. I'm so thankful for Ohio State, as it really is in your blood. New friends, marriages, etc. We all love it just as much and spread it to your kids. I'm thankful in a way that my kids have felt defeat the last 3 years. So this is an interesting take that I wanted to make sure we got to. I'm thankful in a way that my kids have felt defeat the last 3 years because it has made them absolutely hate Michigan even more. They needed to feel what I felt in the 90s. Mm-hmm. I'll never wish for a loss to that team, but my kids had literally seen one loss before 2021, and they are now 20-16. I think that is an important part of this because I do think generationally, there is a lot of this passion and hatred and celebration that is driven by the generation that was scarred by 2-10-1.
Yeah.
The people who were scarred by the Cooper years now have had this other side to celebrate. But I think the argument that it was, I don't want to say it was time, but that things are cyclical and this is the new generation of scars. And now these new fans, these young fans will carry some scars into the future, which might make them celebrate the victories even more. I think there's something to that, Bill. It doesn't mean you root for a loss, as Anthony said, but I think there's something to that.
I think so. Not like it's like testing your allegiances almost, right? Like you love this thing that is successful more often than it isn't, and then something goes awry, and then it's like, okay, how much do I really love this thing? And then like you stick with it, even like this, like even through three losses, right? I'd imagine it makes that connection stronger, provided you see it through, right? Maybe there's some people like, oh, this isn't for me. Like I am too devastated by this. No thanks. But if you kind of get on the other side of that, then yeah, I think it makes the bond even stronger.
Last couple, Bradley L. I was in 7th grade when I was watching the 2002 national championship with my pap. And throughout that whole game, I watched a man who typically was, in my mind, emotionally drained from constantly working in the steel mill to being the happiest I've ever seen him. I mean, this 55-year-old man was jumping up and down and screaming. And we hugged and laughed. And it definitely is a memory I go to when I'm feeling down. Just watching his face and how he felt in that moment was pure ecstasy. When I watch the Buckeyes, I feel like my pap and my best friend Vince are there watching it with me. And for a moment, everything is right with the world. So he also had talked about his friend Vince, who was tragically lost his life to carbon monoxide poisoning. Man, that was terrible. But that kind of thing, Bill, when it's like when you can have a memory of a person that you've lost and that you love, and a game and a team and a sport can bring that back. Come on. Like what is better than that? I think sports does that maybe better than anything else. Last one. This is Jonathan D. We always appreciate his contributions. This is talking about going to games again, like when you're young with your family. I'm more thankful for the memory of that first game with my dad and grandpa, hearing the crowd chant OHIO and watching the band, and of course the Buckeyes. I'll never forget seeing how happy both my dad and grandpa were at that game. I know now what I didn't know then, how much they've been through, all the hardships and rough patches. And so even though they're both alive still, they won't always be. And I'm thankful I'll always have that memory of that first game with them to remember them by. And I'll remember it every time I hear OHIO, and I'll think of them. So, okay, this is good, right? You guys love this team. You love this sport. Good luck on Saturday. Ohio State's in a very good spot here. But I think whatever happens, remind yourself of all the good that rooting for this team, loving this sport, being a part of Buckeye Nation has brought to people. And you don't root for it. You don't root for it. You don't root for it. And I'm not going to, like, if you're an Ohio State fan, you want Ohio State to beat Michigan 100 out of 100 times. Like, that's just not realistic. So this was going to happen, Bill, at some point. And I think a lot of people thought maybe when it happened in 2021, it was a blip and Ohio State would get back on the horse. But I think like that's almost wouldn't have been a scar. That would have been like, man, Aiden Hutchinson was really good. And then especially if the Castellian stuff came out, I was like, remember that time Ohio State lost 1 to Michigan, but they've won, like Tressel lost in 04, but it wasn't defining. But 3 in a row has made it defining.
Yeah.
This 0-3 is the modern version of 2-10-1. So it is defining, which creates opportunity. Right, which creates opportunity. It's why you like the forest burns down and it regrows, right? And sometimes that needs to happen. And I don't want to say that this needed to happen, but it did happen. And this is, I think, an opportunity for growth and rebirth. And we'll go back to what I said about Ryan Day at the start. As a head coach, he's never faced a Michigan team like this. And I think it is not just an opportunity for Saturday, Bill. I think it is an opportunity for a reset for Ohio State. It doesn't mean it will be this easy potentially, and nothing is taken for granted. Like, don't play this back and say, Doug said it was going to be. I'm just saying, like, this is a 20-point spread. That's not what this has been, right? Mm-hmm. Michigan is going to get better. But if Ohio State can take advantage of this opportunity Saturday, Bill, I think it can be something that they then carry forward that they've been missing, right? I think this is a tremendous opportunity, not just for this team, but for this program and this coaching staff and this fan base.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I view it. It's not that anything ever gets taken for granted. It's not that it needed to happen, but it was going to happen. And and sometimes, like throughout this, the door opens for you to swing it back in your favor. And the door opened. Maybe Connor Stallions opened it for Michigan in 2021, and now it's open for Ohio State.
Yeah,
so go do it.
So great opportunity. We'll cover it. The podcast feed, make sure you stay locked to that for everything from Austin, from Berm, from Bill, leading up to the game on Saturday. Bill, what else should people expect in this feed as far as you know between now and Saturday?
Between now and Saturday, is
there a podcast daily Thursday morning?
There is one on Thursday. So Berm and Austin will continue to do their Thursday thoughts on the daily on Thursday morning. If you want to watch that on Thanksgiving, we'll have bowl predictions on Friday. If you haven't watched it yet, you can go back. It was in the feed on Tuesday. We did weekend kickoff with Zach Bourne and Mike Bennett. I thought that was a pretty good conversation about the Ohio State Michigan game. So you can go find that too. And then, we'll be live from the shoe probably about 9:30 Saturday morning, kind of setting the scene and going through any last minute news before the game.
And then on the Wednesday, Kings of the North, we did do a big game breakdown on Ohio State, Michigan, where it's obviously we have one set of thoughts, but you just talk about different things, present them in a different way. So you can find that on Wednesday. Kings of the North will have the post-game show on Saturday at 11 p.m. Eastern. Certainly a lot of discussion about the Ohio State, Michigan game, in addition to talking about Syracuse, Miami, and Penn State, Maryland, and Iowa State, Kansas State, and all the most important games in the North. And we'll also see if there are some SEC upsets. I think there might be. So, as always, we are thankful for you guys that we have an opportunity to engage with this dedicated, educated, loyal fan base. It is fun for us to do this. It is occasionally mind-blowing that we get paid for this. Landis, I just sometimes it's you don't want to almost say it out loud to remind people that are you sure this is a job? But to be able to communicate with people who care so much about a thing and that this thing does bring people so much joy. We do it because we like it and it's fun, but that's if we have a mission, that's it. Otherwise, there would be no mission. Other people have missions to save people's lives or educate people or do real things that matter. And all our mission can be, Bill, is to be a reprieve to people who are doing things out in the world that really make a difference. And if we can do that, that's the tiny little sliver that we are appreciative to have that privilege to do.
No doubt. And I guess I'll just add to that yes, it is a bit shocking often that this is what we get to do, but I feel that the most during this week because I've grown to really love this rivalry in this game and what it means to people and to get to talk about it before and after, kind of no matter what the result is, and either help people through it or help people celebrate whatever that might be. It is, I think, the coolest part of what we get to do when we get to talk about this game.
And it's Thanksgiving week. This is how this works out now is crazy. It is the most exciting week. It is the most meaningful week. And it's a holiday week where you're thinking about being thankful anyway. So we're thankful for you guys. We will see you soon. And as always, thanks for being here. Thanks to our producer, Mike Yersowski, as always, for his help for now. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. Happy Thanksgiving. And that was Kings of Columbus.